Warning, we are not trained or licensed professionals. Do not take any advice that we give as official doctoral prescribed medical treatment. We only use the name as a means to appreciate cinema as a therapeutic device, not to be confused with drugs, antidepressants, or any other forms of enhancements that you might find in legal states. Please enjoy responsibly.
Additional disclaimer. If the film says we can say it too. So check the film rating, and that will be our episode rating. Hello, friends.
We have friends.
No, actually. Hello, listeners, people we
Hello.
don't see.
Actually, that's not true. Probably all of our listeners are just people that know us.
That's also true. Except for maybe that one person on Instagram.
Which one was that now?
Didn't you say we had a follower and I didn't know who it was? You didn't know who it was?
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Shout out to...
Whoever you are, thank you.
Well, this is the greatest intro ever. We totally sound like we know what we're doing.
We do, dude. We watch movies and stuff, and we can talk about them. And that's pretty cool. And I appreciate everyone for listening. Thank you. So, what did we watch this week? We watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Came out in 1975, directed by Milos Forman and starring Jack Nicholson.
Based on a book. So this is the second of 3 movies that won the 5 Academy Awards, like the big 5, I think they call it.
5.
So it's picture, actor, actress, screenplay, and directing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it happened one night, which we've talked about, this film, and then Silence of the Lambs. So that means sometime we got to talk about Silence of the Lambs.
For sure. I'd love to.
Which is like the best of that series anyway, so.
I would agree.
Have you seen like Hannibal or Red Dragon or Manhunter?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Yes. I have not seen Hannibal Rising or the TV show, which I've heard is really good, but I've seen the other movies besides the prequel. So.
Okay. Do they hold up?
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
The only book I read was Red Dragon, so I wanted to read Silence of the Lambs. I just never did.
You still can.
Yes, I know.
I need to find an audiobook. I need to, because I'm running out of podcasts to listen to. If anyone has some good podcast recommendations, let me know.
Well, I was gonna say I could record an audiobook, but I don't know how you feel about listening to my voice for a few hours straight.
That'd be sweet. Yeah. So I've watched this movie in film school a couple years ago, and so this was my second time watching it. And Jake, this was your first time watching it.
Yes,
so
it was.
I'm excited to hear what you thought, and I will give a quick recap. Here we go. When Randall McMurphy, Jack Nicholson, gets transferred from a prison farm to a mental institution, he assumes it will be a less restrictive environment. But the tyrant, Nurse Ratched, Louise Fletcher, runs the psychiatric ward with an iron fist, keeping her patients sustained through abuse, medication, and sessions of electroshock therapy. The battle of wills between the rebellious McMurphy and the inflexible Ratched soon affects all the ward's patients. McMurphy makes friends with a group of patients including Billy, Cheswick, and the Chief, and other roles played by Will Sampson, Sidney Lassick, William Redfield, Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, and Brad Dourif. McMurphy doesn't understand why these men are in the institution and wonders still why some stay even if they aren't required to. He takes them on an impromptu fishing trip after stealing the hospital bus. They all have a blast, and McMurphy is convinced all of these men can function in the real world. He encourages them to escape, just like he was planning to do. On the night he is to escape, he asks his friend with benefits, Candy, to pick him up. Through a series of events, Candy and her friend come up and start a party with all the patients. They get very drunk, and McMurphy encourages Billy to lose his virginity to Candy. Nurse Ratched finds them all in the morning and scolds them. This is too much for Billy to handle, and he commits suicide. Nurse Ratched blames McMurphy for this and orders to have him lobotomized. Brain-dead McMurphy can no longer escape, but the Chief does and runs off into the mountains for freedom.
I wanted to see this for many years. Actually, it was always in the back of my mind to see it, and now I finally did because I got my month of HBO. It's a movie that I definitely enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but it's definitely a very good movie, if that makes sense. It's almost like I wonder if I was alive in the 70s and if I saw movies, I think I'd feel differently about the pacing of 70s movies, because you have movies like, well, this one's under 2.5 hours, but you have Apocalypse Now and The Godfather, which are 3 hours long, and you have these, the pacing of movies from the 60s and the 70s is more they let the moment breathe more, and I think the current generation, I know this is a generalization, but the current the current generation of cinema is much more like quick cutting, just like
Definitely.
shorter shots. For the most part, the pacing of a movie is structured differently than it was back then. Because there's a couple parts of the movie where I felt like it dragged, and I feel that way about a lot of older movies. So I wonder if I was alive in that time period and that was what I was used to, if I would feel different, is what I was trying to get at.
That's an interesting thought. I think I would for sure, because we wouldn't be used to living so fast like we are now.
Yeah.
Or even if we were from a different country, I think we would appreciate it more, because everything
stupid American
is
cinema.
just, I know, it's just like so fast and we're all just running all the time. Thank God I don't live in New York. I think I might die. But yeah, like if you go to Europe or South America or something,
Alaska.
it's just like like everything's much more slowed down. Like you go to restaurants and you just kind of like chill out there. Eventually someone will come take your order. Eventually you'll get your food, but it's just kind of chill out time, which is nice.
Exactly.
And it's different.
Exactly.
I think it translates into watching movies, writing movies, making movies. It's just a lot faster.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, for this movie, I guess I don't really have much new that I could add that a lot of people probably haven't already said. But, the acting is really good. The writing is good. The directing's good. All of that's like solid.
What else did Milos direct?
He did Man on the Moon and Amadeus.
Oh, Amadeus.
He did a movie called Taking Off, Ragtime, Fireman's Ball, The People versus Larry Flint. Have you seen Amadeus?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of it?
I like it a lot. We watched it in grade school in our music class. I think we watched clips of it in film school.
I think so, because I think I saw some of the clips too.
Okay, yeah. I love the Salieri character.
Yeah.
I relate to him so much.
I have the actors in a lot of Wes Anderson stuff.
Yeah, he's Mr. Mustafa in The Grand Budapest.
Yeah.
He's in Lady and the Tramp. The new one.
Oh, okay. He's also in Scarface and How to Train Your Dragon Part 3. Which is it should be called How to Train Your Dragon 3, but it's not. But sequel numbering is a whole different discussion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hollywood does not know how to number sequels, but then again, they don't know how to do a lot of things. So
like make sequels.
Yeah, like make sequels. I was gonna say make movies, but
Oh.
Okay, so last time we mentioned we would only talk about movies that have 6 degrees of separation with Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah.
And this one does, because Brad Dourif is in this movie, and he's also a character in Dune. So
who's Brad Dourif?
There, that one's easy. Brad Dourif, he's the voice of Chucky. Yeah, he plays Billy.
That's right. Yeah, he does a lot. He's in a lot of weird random stuff.
He's in an episode of X-Files. It's basically, he's Hannibal Lecter and Scully is Clarice. It's great. He's so good in that. Oh, Brad Dourif is also in Blue Velvet and Lord of the Rings, the Halloween remake, Exorcist 3, Alien Resurrection.
Crazy.
Obviously, he's the voice of Chucky. Yeah, so he is in Blue Velvet, so that's even easier.
Yeah, man.
But he's also in Dune, so who does he play in Blue Velvet? Is he one of Oh, he's Raymond. Okay, so he's one of Frank's guys.
Oh, okay.
And then in Dune he plays, I don't know who that character is.
Probably one of the soldiers or something.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so that's the connection.
Yeah, so he's badass.
Yeah, he's
Good job,
great.
Brad. I wish I was Brad. Could have met Kyle.
Yes. And if you were Brad from Rocky Horror, you could have met Tim Curry. Unless Brad Dourif is in a movie with Tim Curry, and if he is, I need to see it right now. Also, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but I mentioned I wish that Jeff Goldblum and David Bowie shared the screen together, and apparently they did.
Oh.
I found the picture, but I forgot what the movie is called. It's from the 1985, I think. Oh, yeah, so it's called Into the Night, directed by John Landis.
Into the Night.
Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Pfeiffer, Dan Aykroyd, and David Bowie's in it, which is amazing.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's awesome. So now there is a movie with Jeff Goldblum and David Bowie. So I just wanted to correct that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to know.
So connecting this back to tonight's movie, I remember one of my teachers, I think my English teacher, had the book of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I meant to read it, and I never did. I think I picked it up once, and I read the first chapter, and then schoolwork got in the way, and I just never read it. I moved on to a different book. But I'm curious to know, what's the difference between the book and the movie, because I'm sure they're pretty similar.
What I've read or heard there, the story is narrated and told from the perspective of Chief.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting that they
because he doesn't talk for half the movie.
Yeah, which I guess makes it more understandable why he has this inner monologue going on and he's writing this book. But I think he's an important role. I think the beginning scene, the opening shot of the expansive mountains and the music that plays is symbolic to, one, freedom, obviously.
Yeah.
And two, kind of like Native America. Drum beat is very native sounding. Then once we see, the closing shot of Chief running out into the mountains, it kind of ties it all back together.
Mm-hmm.
I had forgotten a lot what happened, especially the end. I forgot that Billy died. I forgot that Jack Nicholson died. So that was really surprising for me to experience again. I was like, oh, shit. Wow. Okay. What did you think about him, like the main character dying?
Well, that was something I had known before seeing the movie. So it didn't have like a huge reveal for me. But still watching the movie and seeing the progression of his character, I think, like, as far as the story goes, it's sad, obviously, but I'm fine with it. It's not something that like emotionally hit me as big as you'd think. I think it's a very good way for his character to go out. It's kind of like, even though it's really sad he didn't escape, he did inspire Chief to escape, and he inspired the other guys to, stand up for themselves, especially Billy, even though Billy didn't survive, which was sadder for me personally.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Billy was just like this young innocent kid, and then he finally stands up for himself, and then Nurse Ratched's like I'm gonna tell your mom, and then that's just too much for Billy,
Yeah.
So Louise Fletcher plays Nurse Ratched, and she won the Oscar for Best Actress, deservingly so.
Yep.
She also plays a doctor in The Boy Who Could Fly and Exorcist 2, except in those two movies, she's playing the same character who's the opposite of her character in this movie.
That's right.
Because in this movie, she's more like Umbridge, where she starts off and you think she's like this, your first impression is she's like this character that's like very sweet and just wants to make sure everybody's doing okay. And then when you get underneath the layers, you see just how horrible and abusive and controlling she is.
Yes. So I was thinking she was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but that's not right.
No, because in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is one of Jeffrey's aunts from Blue Velvet.
Oh, okay. She's at the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, so when Patricia Arquette, who's in Lost Highway, connecting it to David Lynch, when she and Nancy are in the mental institute, like the one that like doesn't really believe what's going on with Freddy, she's played by one of Jeffrey's aunts.
Okay.
And then Jeffrey's other aunt is played by Jesse's mom from Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Oh boy.
I compared Nurse Ratched to Umbridge, but I think Nurse Ratched in this movie is much more where like you feel like something's up with her, but the reveal of how evil she is much more like gradual.
Yeah, definitely. It's underground a little. She comes off, her exterior is kind and calming. Her voice is just very peaceful. And but what she says is icky.
Exactly.
And I really like that about the character. I think that
Me too.
She comes off so calm but also demeaning and demanding. And she's supposed to be the antagonist to
Jack Nicholson,
whose name is Randall McMurphy, right?
McMurphy. I couldn't think of his last name.
Randall McMurphy. But sometimes they call it Mac. Most of the time they just call him McMurphy. Yeah. But essentially I think they're the same person, but just on opposite sides of the spectrum. Because they're trying to both take control of the situation, take control of the patients, and Jack Nicholson wants them to be extreme and have fun all the time and be crazy and loud and
be free,
and Nurse Ratched is trying to lay them down, control them, make sure they don't act out and behave themselves. They're being antagonists to each other, but really Jack Nicholson, I think, is his own worst enemy. He doesn't really realize why these people are in there. He just thinks, if you are allowed to go, why don't you just go? We should all go because this is stupid for us to be in here. You're not crazy. But then I think he finally realizes it when Billy starts to hit himself in the face that he's like, oh, maybe he should be here. And I kind of feel bad. But instead of admitting that he did something wrong, he just starts to strangle Miss Ratched, and just takes all of his anger and guilt out on her. But then she retaliates, and gives him the lobotomy. So I guess she won. His character is not very redeeming either, because he's in there to avoid going to prison for statutory rape, which is bad. And we don't like that about him.
No.
But here we see him trying to be friends with all of these people in the psychiatric ward and try to help them come alive and nurture their relationships all together, which it's a great ensemble. Like, everyone who does a great job in it. All these other actors and everything. It's really good. Which I also read was due to the fact that they had an extra 6 months before they could get Jack Nicholson on set, so they just worked with the ensemble and just got them to work really, really well together. So I think that really made a difference.
I love that.
Yeah. Did you know that Jack Nicholson's... Well, so he didn't know that he was raised by his grandparents instead of his parents. He thought his grandparents were his parents. And that
I didn't know that.
Sister, it was actually his mom.
Huh.
Which is kind of ironic because of Chinatown. But not in a bad way. It's not like that in a bad way. It's just that she was a teen... She had a teen pregnancy with him. And she was raised with him as if she was his sister. But she was his mom, and his grandparents acted as their parents, but they were actually his grandparents.
That's so fascinating. That's like disturbing and fascinating, and that sounds like a movie.
Yeah, for sure. But at the time he found out, it was right before this movie, I think, or during it. But his mom had already passed away, so like he couldn't even like talk to her, and I'm not sure how he found out, but
how did his mom die? Did you find that out?
I'm not sure. Yeah, crazy. Well, also, they did a lot of method acting and stuff for this. They stayed in that sanatorium while they were shooting. They, lived there. Mm-hmm. And then they lived with the patients who were there because the hospital kept working while they were filming. And so they, made friends with all the patients and witnessed shock therapy. God, can you imagine that?
No, I can't.
And it really got to some of the cast members. The guy who plays Cheswick. The guy who played Cheswick, it got to him at one point, and he had a complete breakdown.
Oh, wow.
Then also Danny DeVito, he was away from his family for so long and made up an imaginary friend, and was worried about it for a while. But then after talking to a doctor, he was like, as long as you realize that your imaginary friend is imaginary, you're chill, dude. And he's like, all right, cool. But it's just interesting, the way it affects them during this time.
Jesus, yeah. You know what other movie has shock therapy in it?
What?
Ironically, it's not Shock Treatment, despite the title. Return to Oz has shock therapy. That's how it starts. Oh my God, what? Yeah, it's a great movie, but it's really disturbing. Side tangent. So this is the sequel to the Wizard of Oz, and Return to Oz starts off with Dorothy back in Kansas, and then Uncle Henry and Auntie Em are concerned about her because she won't shut up about Oz. And then so they take her to this doctor who tries to put her under shock therapy, and then she escapes and ends up in Oz with a talking chicken.
That's so weird.
There's also a couch with a moose's head, and they call it the Gump.
The Gump?
The Gump.
That's
not to
terrifying.
be confused with Forrest Gump or the Gump from Legend. This is the Gump from Return to Oz.
Oh boy.
But anyway, yeah. So that was it. That's why I brought it up, because that's another movie that has shock therapy in it, and it's just as disturbing in that movie as it is in this movie. One thing interesting about, for me, with Jack Nicholson is, because I want to word this in a way that's a positive. So to me, Jack Nicholson always plays the same kind of role. His performance is always kind of at the same level, but it's always really good. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. When I watch this and when I watch The Shining, it's for me, I'm okay, it's the same Jack Nicholson performance. But I'm not saying it's samey in a bad way. I'm saying it's samey because, he does really good, but every time I see him as himself, in a way.
Yeah. It's hard to not remember all of his performances as he's performing, for some reason. Yeah.
That's kind of how, Jim Carrey is, too, when you see him. Not saying you don't see the character, but you see the actor first, because they have such a recognizable, face and voice, and... Mm-hmm. Also, Danny DeVito being in this movie was such a surprise. I watched this with Wilton, so I think when Danny DeVito came on, I was like, is that Danny DeVito? And then he's like, yeah, I think so. And then Christopher Lloyd's also in it, and I didn't recognize him at first because his hair is so short.
What else is he in?
He's Doc from Back to the Future. He's also Professor Plum in Clue.
Okay.
What's his character name? I know it starts with a T.
Tabor.
Yes. Scatman Crothers is in this. He's also in The Shining with Jack Nicholson.
That's right.
Yeah. But yes, Christopher Lloyd is Tabor. Of Christopher Lloyd. He's great and everything. It was funny seeing Dick Halloran and Jack Torrance in the same scene, like those same actors, because they look virtually the same because it was 5 years between the two movies, and then just seeing scenes between the two of them, it's almost like you could make connective tissue somehow. But yes, Jack Nicholson's character in this movie, it's like he isn't redeemable, but the way he changes their lives for the better still has that inspiring feel to it, even though he's kind of a despicable person.
Does he change them though? Because after he quote escapes / gets a lobotomy, they're just all hanging out like they normally do, playing their card games, not really talking about anything different.
That's true. When McMurphy first shows up, then they're like, these are the crimes you've committed. You're just sitting there thinking well, how are we ever going to feel connected to this guy when he's done these horrible things? And then as the movie goes on, you're I had that weird dichotomy in my head because I'm they said you did this before the movie, and I'm no, that's awful. But then
right.
he's also there's that scene when he takes everybody fishing, and then I'm man, this feels like a joyous moment, even though That's still in the back of my head. But as far as does he change everybody else? I don't know, because it's the same thing as Breakfast Club, I guess. Whether they go back, I guess we don't know what happens on Monday. But whatever happened on Monday, it doesn't matter because they're changed from the experience. So that's kind of how I saw it. Was that the guys there were just changed by his experiences, and the legend of him escaping is there's oh, he did escape and he becomes legendary, and then the chief actually escapes.
Yeah, and becomes legendary.
Yes, and then Tabor starts cheering for him, and I'm that's awesome.
And I guess he kind of changes us as the audience because of the way we see him, and then you're just describing how we start to view him differently. So that's kind of an influence he has. Yeah,
for sure. One of the scenes I felt most invested was when the second time he tries to get the vote to get majority, and then he runs around and asks everyone there, hey, do you want to see the game? Do you want to see the ball game? And the chief raises his hand, and then I'm I want them to be able to watch the game. I
know. Poor guy. Yeah, and that's kind of when Ratchet is starts to show her true mean side. But it was cute that he commentated the ball game even though it wasn't on, and
Yeah, and then they all got into it. That was so fun. I love throughout how he was trying to show Chief how to shoot, and then Chief actually makes the shot, and I was yeah.
Yeah. It was all filmed mostly filmed in Salem, Oregon, except for the fishing scene that was in somewhere in California. And they also filmed it last, I believe, and the rest of the film was shot chronologically, which is interesting.
I wondered if it was shot chronologically.
Yeah.
Because that was something that Wilton and I talked about when watching the movie. We ended up mentioning how movies are, shot out of order, and then I was okay, what movies have been shot chronologically? And I'm well, there's Breakfast Club, there's Before Sunset, and then I'm well, what else? And then I wondered if that was true for this movie, and then I didn't look it up. So thanks for looking that up.
Yeah. And it was kind of a debate whether they should put it in or not. I'm not sure if it's in the book. But I'm really glad they did. I think that's a great scene. That's probably my favorite scene. For the fishing scene, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, I really liked the fishing scene a lot. I think that was another turning point in the movie. It felt really exciting, and it felt like they were all free for a little bit. It's kind of the equivalent in Shawshank when I was gonna say it's when Andy gets them beer, but I was thinking more when they hear the music. Yeah, there was a lot of scenes that kind of reminded me of when they hear the music. Yeah. It's similar in ways. I think if you enjoyed Shawshank, you might enjoy this movie too. It has a lot of similarities. The way I viewed it, this is a solid draft that they did, and then Shawshank would be the final version of the same story. But also because Shawshank's I love that movie so much. It depends on the kind of ending you want, I guess, because they both have similar endings, but also very different endings. Very different. Well, yeah, they're very different. Yeah, it's interesting. There are some similar in ways, for sure. That'd be an interesting double feature to do, are those two. There was a lot of yelling the whole time. I didn't really enjoy that. Just a lot of the dialogue was loud and harsh.
Like background yelling or like foreground yelling or both?
Like all of the characters were just yelling at each other the whole time. I felt like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're just kind of annoying. I just really like Nurse Ratchet's character. I started to watch Ratchet, the Netflix series. I just started the first episode just to see what it was like.
How is it?
So I could talk about it a little bit. It was okay. I didn't completely finish the first episode, but it's weird. It portrays her in a way different way. She's like a definite insane person. Like she belongs in the psychiatric hospital for sure. As they portray her. But I love Sarah Paulson. She's great. The first episode is her trying to get a job at that hospital. Mm-hmm. And she does some crazy stuff to get it. So it's interesting. There's a lot of very dramatic music I think is unnecessary. It kind of threw me off, but that's my complaint so far. So I might keep watching.
That sounds really intriguing, though. I don't know why they'd portray her that way right off the bat, but that's still a really like fascinating idea. Like out of all the prequel things that we don't need, that one kind of feels like it has a purpose in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first heard they were doing it, I was like, what? Why would they do that? And then they like brought Sarah Paulson on. I was like, okay.
So it sounds almost like the Hannibal series or the Bates Motel series where it's that kind of prequel story. So I feel like in some ways those kind of TV shows are better than just making like, oh, this is like Jack Nicholson's character right before he shows up at the asylum, or oh, this is well, I guess Bates Motel is about Norman, or Hannibal is about Hannibal. But you know what I mean. It's and then there's Red Dragon. Fuck, there's so many fucking prequels. There's so many prequels. You get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's kind of like Better Call Saul from Breaking Bad.
That's the one I couldn't think of.
Even though he's not an antagonist, really. He's just a off character that everyone likes, and so...
I haven't seen a single full episode of either show, Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad.
Oh, man.
I've heard Breaking Bad is like one of the best things ever, and I'm sure it is. I just haven't watched it yet.
It's so good.
I'm too busy watching Twin Peaks again. What else am I doing? Yeah. Well, at least
pretty much that.
well, at least this time I had a reason, which was showing it to you. So watching it with you. So
yeah, definitely. You've seen Cool Hand Luke, right?
Yes, I have. We watched that in film school. Okay,
so I haven't seen it, but I've heard that it's similar to this movie. What do you think about that?
I agree with that as far as the way it's shot, the way it's edited, the pacing, the dialogue. I'm just trying to think of if it's like that way through the like story-wise. You know what? Yeah, they are very similar. But they're both very good. They both have wonderful leading performances. You got Paul Newman, who's a treasure, and then Jack Nicholson, who's a treasure for different reasons. Yeah, I haven't seen Cool Hand Luke in probably 3 years at least. So I don't remember it very well, but I do remember the things I remember are similar to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
But I have similar feelings about it where I'm like, this part's really good, and then this part's kind of meandering, and then it gets really good again.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel about older movies. Speaking of on a similar thread, maybe this is like a new unofficial trilogy of ours. But the one I want to see is The Great Escape with Steve McQueen, because I've heard that is like really good also.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I actually have it on DVD. I've had it for a while, but I haven't watched it because it's like 3 hours. So
okay.
It also has Richard Attenborough from Jurassic Park. I forget who else is in it. But anyway, I heard about it for years and I've wanted to check it out. So
nice. Okay.
It just got put on Criterion, so I'm sure it's good. Oh. Even though I don't love every Criterion movie, obviously. But anyway, Great Escape is one I've wanted to see, and Cool Hand Luke and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest I would say they are similar. They're both worth watching for sure.
Okay, very cool. And then I was listening to someone talk about another movie it reminded them of, and they said The Dream Team, it's a comedy about 4 mental hospital patients going on a field trip in New York with their doctor, but then their doctor, I think, gets killed, and they have to figure out how to catch the murderer and get back to the hospital and everything. So that seems like a fun movie.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's from 1989, so...
Yeah, it's got Christopher Lloyd, Michael Keaton, and Peter Boyle. So that's a great trio right there. I want to see what the fourth guy's in. Yeah, Stephen First. He's also in Animal House. Who does he play in Animal House? Flounder. Okay, so Flounder from Animal House, Peter Boyle from Everybody Loves Raymond, Christopher Lloyd from Take Your Pick, and Michael Keaton, Batman. So there you go. That's a great collection of actors right there.
Yeah.
Who directed it? Let's see. Howard Zeif. He also directed My Girl and My Girl 2. Have you seen those?
No.
I haven't heard of anything else. But yes, that's interesting. I wanna check that out now.
Yeah, it looks fun.
There we go. The quadrilogy. The Great Escape, Cool Hand Luke, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Dream Team.
And it kind of reminded me of Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
I love Dream Warriors.
Because it's obviously in a mental asylum.
Yeah.
And this also reminded me of the movie The Ringer. Have you seen that?
No, but I feel like you've mentioned it before.
I probably have. It's one of my favorites. It's about this guy who goes into the Special Olympics because he thinks he can win because he's not actually special, but he goes and infiltrates it, but he gets to know all of the characters, and it's like a big ensemble cast as well, and they go on a little excursion, but then they get in trouble, and there's a lot of similarities, and it's really sweet at the end. It's definitely a happy ending as opposed to this.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's really funny.
I meant to record it and then send it to you before we started. I forgot. But there's a video on YouTube, and it's like most unlikely versus battles. It's like a 3-part thing. One of them is like, okay, so you put these two characters, like, let's say like Bart Simpson and Andy Dufresne, or so, like two characters that would never fight each other. Like they'd never ever meet, but it's like, how do they meet? And then one of them was like one of the Transformers characters, and then the chief from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So apparently, if you want to know what happens in the sequel after the chief runs out into the field, I'll try to find that so we can like put it in the description.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I had to say about this movie. I'm glad I finally saw it for sure, and now I want to make connective tissue between those 4 movies and make like a quadrilogy out of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
And yeah, I don't care that much, but it's just a fun idea.
Okay.
So, did you watch anything this week?
Yes, I did.
Enlighten me. Enlighten everyone who's listening? What did you watch?
I watched Locked Down.
Is that the full title?
It was, yes. It's on HBO Max. It's an HBO Max original, I think, that's with Anne Hathaway and this other guy. And it's a COVID movie, but it's not what you'd expect. Oh, no. It was really long. It was over 2 hours long, which was completely unnecessary. Oh, I forgot one more thing I was going to say about Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay, what's up?
I definitely think it could have been shorter. I think it would have been an effective short film, honestly.
Yeah. Well, what could you take out? Because I don't want to take out the fishing scene because that's like the best part of the movie. I
think I would have to take out the fishing scene.
Damn it.
I don't know. Yeah. I just feel like you could get the point across without 2.5 hours, but that's also probably the American in me.
Yeah. I agree with you though. So
yeah, okay.
I don't know what that means, but yeah. So this locked down movie about COVID.
Yeah.
So Hollywood, don't make movies specifically about COVID. We don't want to remember it. You made there's like Contagion and The Stand, right? That's close enough. We don't need movies directly about COVID. Yeah, Quarantine. That's the other one. Thank you. Which I haven't seen any of those movies. I really want to watch The Stand, even though it's like 6 hours long.
Quarantine's creepy.
Quarantine, the poster freaked me out when I saw it because I was like young, and I'm like, I'm not watching that shit.
It
reminded me of the shot in Spider-Man 2 when she gets pulled down into like the dark space. The nurse, the doctor, like the Evil Dead Doc Ock scene in Spider-Man 2. But anyway, so please continue about this locked down mess.
Yeah, so what I was expecting was 2 people trying to date during this time, but it was about a couple who were already together for like 10 years. And then they were about to break up, but then they had to be quarantined together and learn to love each other again. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens too. And it's a weird ending. So
That sounds awful.
It's just like, yeah, they just yell at each other and fight the whole time. And I was like, what is this, Marriage Story? But I didn't sign up for it because I didn't know that this was going to be like that. So
that sounds very triggering and very misguided. Mm-hmm. What is this weird ending? Spoilers for whatever this movie's called. How does Lockdown? How does it end?
They end in like a heist scene, or like a heist sequence where they break into this really expensive department store in order for the guy to keep his job, but then she helps him and everything, and it's really weird. And then how does it end? I mean, I don't even remember. They end up together still, obviously.
Shocking.
Yeah, don't watch it.
It sounds like a bad Hallmark movie premise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Will they get together? Yeah, they're going to get together.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
It's not even a mystery.
Yeah.
Some of the best romantic movies, it's not about the question. It's about a similar type of question. Because I was like, what's a will they won't they movie? And I'm like, I can't think of really any good ones. Because when I think of best romantic movies, I think of like, Before Sunrise. And I'm like, I guess that's a will they won't they, but then there's 2 sequels. So
it's still, yeah, you're right. Yeah. But it's definitely more of a question, and I don't know. Yeah, I get what you mean though. It's not like so predictable.
Yes, exactly. And then there's like Titanic, but the real question is, are they going to survive?
Right. So anyway, then I cleansed my palate and we watched Mulholland Drive.
Yes, we did.
Thank God. That was awesome.
I love Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, it was great the second time I watched it. I definitely understood a lot more after watching Twin Peaks: The Return, and
it's easier to understand, I think.
Yeah, it's still mindfuckery, but it's easier mindfuckery.
Yes.
Then I watched Dune, more Daddy Lynch.
And more Kyle.
More Kyle. That was fun. It was entertaining.
And Virginia Madsen's also in it. She narrates. She's Princess Irulan.
Yep.
So now we can watch that movie with her and Zoltar. Because now you've seen Dune.
Yeah.
And then the entire episode, we're going to call them Princess Irulan and Zoltar. I don't care what their names are in that other movie. Who cares? It's Zoltar.
Yes. Oh, and then I finished watching Thor. I think I mentioned we started it last time, but we finished watching it.
Yeah, so what did you think of Thor? You mean the first Thor, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember watching it in high school, and I was like, oh yeah, Thor's the best. He's so fucking cool. But then watching it this time, I was like, this movie sucks. It's not a very good movie. But we made it through. And we're going to continue on. The next Marvel movie in the chronological sequence, not in real time, but in Marvel time, is Avengers. So we're going to watch that one.
So you watched the first Captain America then already?
Yes.
So did you watch that and then Captain Marvel and then like whatever comes after that?
Yeah, Iron Man and then Iron Man 2 and Hulk was somewhere in there, but we skipped that one because we didn't want to see Edward Norton as Hulk. Sorry, Eddie. I love you, but I don't really like that movie.
He's better as characters that don't have names.
Yes, I would agree. So yeah, now we're going to watch Avengers at some point.
I am really curious. Watching the MCU in chronological order, I'm not like taking a stab at you guys for doing this because it's a really interesting idea. But from my perspective, watching it in chronological order makes less sense than watching like Star Wars in chronological order because like people like get up in arms if you watch like the prequels first. But like, okay, I can see the benefits to like watching Revenge of the Sith or those movies before the originals. Are there story benefits besides just the alternate experience of watching like Captain America and then Captain Marvel and then Iron Man and doing it that way?
So far, and it's probably the pace at which we're going very, very, very slow. Mm-hmm. If we were watching one a week even or a couple a week, it would probably feel a lot more rewarding. But especially for Noah, he just forgets everything. So I have to like remind him like, oh, remember who that is? Nick Fury? He'll be like, who? I'll be like, Samuel Jackson? Oh, okay, yeah. In that way, it's kind of nice because we can recognize the connections as they come rather than it's easier to watch it now than waiting years like I did in high school and college and everything, and
yes,
waiting for the end credit scene and
oh god,
than having like such a huge cliffhanger, but now they're kind of all coming together, which I like. So I I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing how they're connected in that way, because sometimes there's just like way too many people and storylines and characters and fucking infinity stones, and I'm just like, what? So it's nice to see them all connected.
Yeah, for sure. The MCU is basically TV, but it's movies.
Yeah.
And now they're doing TV with WandaVision, and which I've been watching one. I have seen every episode. So I've seen the first, obviously a new one comes out on Friday, but I've seen all the episodes so far, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's good. You and Noah won't get to it for a while because you still have almost 20 more movies to watch, because it takes place after Endgame, but I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay, cool. I mean, I'll probably check it out, but I'm gonna leave him in the dust. He can catch up. He'll be like, "Who's Wanda? Is that Mary-Kate Olsen?" No.
Why Mary-Kate Olsen? Why not Ashley?
Is it Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen? Are they playing the same character, but just sometimes there's different, like in Full House? No.
I was gonna say, wait. When have you two had this discussion? Like,
never.
Okay. You threw me for a loop because I'm like, wait a minute. What else did the Olsen twins play the same character in? Because in like every other movie they were in, they just played like twins, except on Full House and Fuller House. So I'm like, wait, no, they're not on Fuller House. No, I don't think. Right? Like, wasn't that like the thing that they're not like on it for some reason? Yeah,
they're just like traveling the world or something. Or
which is like what
Michelle is traveling the world.
Because isn't there like a movie when they're like in Rome or something? And then there's like a soccer one. And
I love
that's the only ones I remember. I remember seeing like that like ad like on some like VHS tape somewhere, and then being like, man, what the shit is this?
That was the first time I kind of understood what movies were and what acting was, because I was like, wait, because their names in the movie was not Mary-Kate and Ashley, and I was like, wait, why are they going by these weird names? That's not who they are. And then my friend was like, no, it's like they're playing this character like in a play. And I'm like, oh.
Dude, that's so fascinating. I love that.
I specifically remember it being that soccer movie with Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Yeah, because it was on probably quite a few VHS tapes, like the previews, but I remember it was like that, and then they had Iron Giant on the same tape.
Hell yeah.
It might have been Space Jam, it might have been like Pokemon, I don't remember, but anyway, it was one of those two. So did you watch anything else this week?
I've just been watching a lot of TV on HBO. I watched The Flight Attendant, and now I started to watch The Undoing. Both are really good so far. Or I finished The Flight Attendant. That was really good. I recommend that.
That's awesome. Here's what I watched this week. So when I went to see Little Women in the theater, it was at a independent theater chain. So they had trailers for more independent films. And one of them was this movie called Straight Up. And since I saw the trailer, I'm like, man, I want to watch this movie. And it took me over a year to see it. And I wish I had seen it as soon as I saw that trailer. Because my God, it was so good. Really? It was so good. It's on Netflix now.
Straight Up?
Straight Up. It's about this guy who's questioning his sexual identity, and then he meets this girl, and then they start a relationship, and it's very slice of lifey, and it's filmed in like 4:3, I think, or some other kind of aspect ratio, 1:33:1. It's got that like unique style, so it's kind of like Lost in Translation-esque. It's really good. There were a couple things in it I wasn't a fan of. There's a couple scenes where I'm like, okay, we didn't need this, we didn't need that. They're more just like subjective things where I'm like, I'd rather this scene wasn't in the movie, not like as objective flaws with the movie itself. Mm-hmm. But as soon as it began, really, my thought was just like, man, where has this movie been all my life? Like, I want because whenever I like lose faith in Hollywood, I go watch like an independent movie like that, and I'm just like, man, that just like restores my faith in movies. And then I found a DVD at Walmart for like $4 or $5. It was a 2-pack of movies directed by Joe Dante, who directed Gremlins. One of them I saw when I was young, and one of them I hadn't seen. So I had not seen Explorers before. And unfortunately, I didn't really like it that much. I watched about half of it, and I was like, But it sounded really interesting. It's these 3 young kids that build a spaceship, and it's like made in the 80s. And it has young Ethan Hawke and young River Phoenix. And I'm like, man, that sounds so cool. And then I just couldn't get into it.
Oh, man.
The other one I watched was, I watched this a lot as a kid, was Small Soldiers. Have you seen that before?
No, I haven't.
It's great. My cousin and I would watch it when we were really little because they had it on VHS. So we'd watch the tape, that and like the first Spider-Man. We'd watch those two movies over and over and over. Granted, they both had Kirsten Dunst in them, so that was a great reason to watch both of them. But the movie's about like these two guys. They work for a toy company, and Dennis Leary is their boss. And Dennis Leary is like, he sees the ad for the toy, and then the toy is like, punching their way out of the box, and they're fighting each other. And Dennis Leary is like, man, what if the toys could actually like walk and talk? So then the two guys, they find a military chip, and the one guy puts it in the toy, and then they start mass producing them, and then they end up in the hands of like some like teenager, and then the toys come to life and start killing each other. It's so silly, but it's great.
Oh, wow. And it's a kid's movie?
Yeah, it's a kid's. Well, yeah, I think it's like PG-13 or something, but like kids can watch it. Like they just swear a lot. Phil Hartman's in it. It was like the last movie he was in, I think, or one of his last movies, which is kind of sad. He's also in Jingle All the Way.
Okay.
He's the neighbor in that, the one that's like eating all the cookies. That's why Arnold says, "Put the cookie down."
Oh, put the cookie down.
Yes. I love that. Like that's what I reference him from, because he's done like a bunch of other like famous stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's in Jingle All the Way. I'm a '90s kid. Fuck it. Next movie I watched on HBO, I watched. I don't know if you'd call it like a remake or whatever. It's not a remake; it's a sequel, but it's kind of a remake. You know what it is? It's like Halloween 2018. I hate this trend. Stop making sequels and giving them the same title as the original. It doesn't work. So I watched the 2015 Vacation, because it was only one of the theatrical films I hadn't seen. So, there's Vacation, European, Christmas, and Vegas. And then like years later, they made this new one, and it's like Chevy Chase's son, he's the dad, and he takes his family on a vacation.
Right. Okay.
I couldn't get through it. It was filled with jokes that I probably would have thought were funnier when I was younger, but they're just... I think it was like Sausage Party was the movie you watched. You said the target audience is totally 15-year-old boys, and I was laughing, but I felt so bad at the same time. I'm like, that was me with that movie, where I was like kind of laughing, but I was also cringing, because I'm like, this is just like written for 15-year-olds.
Yes.
And there's actually like some of the jokes I feel like wouldn't even, I don't know if they'd even like work now, because I don't know. It's fucking weird. It was so weird. Chevy Chase and Clark and Ellen, they had a cameo, and that I skipped forward to that part because I wanted to see them. They were great in the movie, but like the rest of the movie was just not good. There was a scene when they go to like the scene I like stopped the movie at was like half hour into it or something. They go to like a college campus where the mom used to live in a sorority, and then I totally forgot she was in this movie, but Jade from Victorious is in this movie for 2 minutes. I think when she showed up, I snapped it to my sister. I'm like, holy shit, I'm watching this random movie on HBO and Jade is in it.
Oh my god.
So yeah, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm done with this movie, and I went and I watched like the end, and I'm like, okay, well, the movie ends with like them like fighting some other family and like beating the crap out of them, and that's like,
what?
It's basically like Little Miss Sunshine if Little Miss Sunshine wasn't good. That's how I describe Vacation 2015. It's okay. Little Miss Sunshine if Little Miss Sunshine was like a terrible movie.
Okay.
With like offensive, unfunny jokes.
Ugh. Sausage
Party level humor in a Little Miss Sunshine type movie. That's the perfect way to describe it.
Gotcha.
The last thing I watched the movie Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Have you seen that before?
No.
So it's about Truman Capote. And Catherine Keener is also in it. Okay. She plays Harper Lee, the author of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh.
And it's about... I always feel bad when I have 3 movies in a row I didn't get through. But I didn't get through this one either.
No.
This is another movie where technically everything was great, but I just was really, really bored by it. But like all the acting's good, like the cinematography's great, and it like won all these like awards, and I'm sitting here just being like, I'm just not into the story. But it's basically Philip Seymour Hoffman plays this guy who, like there's this murder that happens and he's an author. And it was a true story. And he's an author. And then he goes and sits on the other side of the jail cell and talks to like the murderers and like understands their psyche. And that's like the movie, which is a really fascinating idea. So I wish I really liked the movie. I just couldn't get into it. Do you ever have that where like you feel bad because you like know a movie's good, but you don't like it?
Yes.
You're all like, it's so dull.
Yes. I get you.
I'm so glad you understand that, because it makes me feel less...
It makes you feel validated.
Yes, exactly. I was trying to say that without directly saying it, but you said it, so thanks.
Okay.
External validation is a good thing. So kind of a bummer to end on.
That's okay. We will watch more movies this week.
Yep.
I love watching movies. What should we watch this week? Do you want to watch something that's all on HBO since you only have it for a month?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe North by Northwest.
Ooh.
Because I haven't seen that. That's on here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that then.
Okay.
So next week, your prescription is North by Northwest, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. So
Our first Hitchcock.
Mm-hmm. And it's apparently a good one to start with. I have never seen it. Have you seen it before?
I've seen it. It's been a long time. So I'm excited to watch it again. I remember it being really good. So. And
if we ever watch a movie where we're both just like, we have nothing to say, we're not into it, then we'll pick something else.
Yeah.
Unless it's a movie we both hate, in which case that'll be a fun episode.
Right.
Just rage, just scream in therapy.
Yes. Sometimes you need to scream therapy. Okay, thank you for listening this week. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at Film Therapy Podcast, and you can email us at filmtherapypodcast@gmail.com, and you can go to our YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes. That is Film Therapy Podcast.
So you've got 3 options to follow us. Actually, you got more than that.
Lots more.
If you want, some of the options include A, Spotify, 2, Apple Music, or D, did you say LinkedIn? Does that have...
I post on LinkedIn, and you can download it from LinkedIn, and it's Apple Podcasts, not Apple Music, but...
Damn it! I was so close.
Just want to...
Well, at least I didn't say iTunes, because I almost said... I was like, not iTunes. What is it? Apple something.
Yes, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher, and... somewhere on Amazon you can get it if you get Amazon Podcasts.
If you go to our Libsyn website, you can see all the different options, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
I think so.
So just go on to our website. It's filmtherapy.libsyn.com, I believe.
Yeah, and you can also download it from that website too. So.
Yeah. So there you go. Plenty of ways to download. So Goya asthma, download it.
Go home and watch some Alfred Hitchcock. It's gonna be great. And we'll see you next week.